Welcome to Good Money Moves, the show where we share all kinds of financial tips and advice to help you feel financially empowered. I'm Jenna Taubel, and with me today is Nate Finney, our Account Services Manager here at First Alliance Credit Union. Before we dig into our topic today, which is credit cards versus debit cards and when to use which one, some pros and cons about using them, not using them, that's what Nate's here to talk about. But before we dig into that, Nate, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your role here at the credit union? What the heck is an Account Services Manager?
Sure. So Account Services Manager kind of is the umbrella for a lot of different things, but I like to think of it about payments. So we deal a lot with debit card, credit card transactions, the whole program that helps with protection. We also deal with like ACH for members, direct deposit. Basically anything that goes in and out of an account is kind of under that whole umbrella of account services.
Yeah.
So it's very fun. It's fast-paced, and it's really kind of neat to be able to help members.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. Yep. So let's just dive right in, maybe, and even start at the most basic level of this conversation, which is, what is the difference between a credit card and a debit card, really?
Sure. Yeah.
For somebody who's new to financial terms, like, what's the most basic way to describe that?
Right. So I think the basic thing to think about is what is it tied to, right? So a debit card is directly tied to a person's checking account, right? So it's actually tied directly to the member's funds. When you're using a credit card, you most likely have gone through an application process and you're awarded a credit card to be able to be used for spending. But you're using money on a line of credit or a credit line that is made available to you. So you're using the financial company's funds to make those purchases.
So it's like a loan.
Exactly. It truly is, and it's going to help you start building credit.
Sure. So credit cards are a line of credit with a piece of plastic attached to them,
right,
which is why it can be confusing between what a debit card is, which is also a piece of plastic, although we're starting to have digital cards now, which is a whole nother thing, right?
Exactly.
But they function similarly.
Yeah, it is basically a function because it is just a device, and what is it attached to and how does it work?
Yeah. So maybe talk about some of the risks between choosing to use your credit card versus your debit card and vice versa.
Sure. You know, for somebody that's wanting to get daily transactions or just, go through daily life, most likely your regular bills that you're paying and purchases are going to be tied most likely to a debit card because it is your regular spending or your budget that you're working through. People tend to go to credit for certain things or because of a behavior, because they want to establish credit, for instance, or maybe it's an item that they weren't planning on. They want to put it on the line of credit, thinking about how am I going to pay that back, because if you're using that debit card versus the credit card, the debit card is going to affect your funds. Mm-hmm. So you got to think about which way do I want to use that, right?
Sure. So sounds like it's a little bit of a balance between, do I have the funds available now in my checking account to fund this purchase, or do I want to rely on this, line of credit that I am going to have to pay back, but it's more advantageous just because of the situation that you're in, or just kind of balancing those things.
Right. I mean, we always talk about like a life event or like a large purchase. Mm-hmm. You're not planning on it, but you might have needed it right then and there.
Yeah.
That's where a credit card comes in handy.
Yeah. So when would you say are maybe like the absolute times you really should use a debit card over a credit card? Are there any specific scenarios where that makes more sense, generally speaking?
I wouldn't say generally speaking. I think it more is about the person. Like, how do I work within my budget? Like, how do I look at my spending? We have people that put everything on their credit card and pay it off monthly, right? But it's about the behavior and how good are you with that actual credit line versus the debit line, right?
Sure.
If it's going to involve using your actual funds, you have to have a plan. Whereas maybe on the credit line, I know I got it out there, I need to use it, I'll figure this piece out.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. So it maybe as you're kind of talking through this, it sounds like maybe the advantage of using that debit card is you don't necessarily have this future payment involved as you would with a credit card, right?
True.
So
Right.
it's a little bit more, I guess, instantaneous to your budget when you're using that debit card.
Correct.
Versus that credit card, you can almost like plan ahead for those payments over that period of time. So like to your point, those larger purchases that might come up, you don't necessarily have to pull $300 out of your savings account if that's all you have,
Right.
in order to, fix your washing machine or whatever that financial emergency is, versus, being able to maybe make $100 payments over the course of 3 months to pay that off with a credit card. So
Very true.
Yeah.
And I think of an example, like a lot of people do a spring trip or they're doing some traveling, right? A lot of times what we see is people might not have a credit line available and are needing to use their debit card. Well, what if you go in to rent a car, right? They're using their debit card to rent the car, but it's not only the purchase of that car, they actually put a hold on your funds, right?
Sure.
So if you're using a debit card and you're not planning on it holding funds against your account, that puts you in a pickle right there, right? So they're going to put a hold on your account until everything is done, and then they will release it. So you get into those situations where if you did have a credit card, that's a perfect choice to be able to use that credit line in that circumstance, so you're not tying up your own money during a time of need, right?
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like I see like a hold on your debit card even at gas pumps sometimes. So we're going to put $100 hold on your card.
Exactly.
And so if you only need $15 in gas, you don't really want to have that hold on your card. So I can see where using a credit card in situations like that, which
sure.
I think is common for people to use their credit card for daily purchases like
Yep.
gas and groceries, to your point, and then just pay it off in full.
Yep.
Which kind of leads me to another question that I wanted to dig into today, and that is around using credit cards and its connection to your credit score.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge component when we're talking about using lines of credit and loans.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yep, it is a benefit to having a credit card that's automatically going to report to the credit bureaus and help you build that credit. But there's things that you have to be diligent. You have to be watching the account. You have to make sure of those loan payments, right? Interest is involved, late fees, penalties, things that you might not have been taking into account when you made that big purchase.
Yeah.
So if you're not able to pay it off in full that month, if you're one that needs to pay in payments, you have to start thinking about, am I going to be able to afford all that? And can I be diligent in making that payment? Because if you don't make the payment, then there's that affect your credit score as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. I think, just kind of talking about pros and cons between the two, that it can seem really advantageous to use the credit card and like pay it off over time. But to your point, it actually costs you more in the long run than just
Correct.
the amount you're buying, because of things like the fees or the interest rates, which on some credit cards can be, 29+% in some cases, which, I mean, I can't imagine paying an extra 29% on my gas that I'm
Right.
putting in my car already.
And you're not thinking about it,
Yeah.
right? And there's laws that have been put in place, but if you have a credit card, look at the statement, because it truly does tell you how long it would take to pay that off just by paying that minimum payment. It's pretty astonishing that in most cases it's years.
Yes. Yeah, even for a small amount, really,
Correct.
which is, I think, why we see so many of our own members like coming in and saying, I'm stuck in this credit card debt, like help me get out, right? Is for
Exactly.
that very reason, because you're like, oh, but I'm making the minimum payments on this every month. I should be making progress, and you just never get anywhere.
Exactly.
It can be really frustrating.
And that's why we talk about making sure you have a plan, right?
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to be able to make that payment or pay that off?
Yeah. Is there ever a scenario, because we talked, about larger purchases, what scenarios make sense to use your debit card or like the funds that you have in savings to make that purchase versus, swiping that credit card instead?
Especially if you have the funds available to you and you know that your budget can handle that, I think that's a great way of using your own cash to make that purchase happen and not have extended payments or interests in the long run. A lot of times too, there's benefits to using that credit card. There's rewards programs, which are very bountiful this time, right? They have a lot of rewards programs out there. And then also that effect with the credit score. So it's a fine line, it's a balancing act, and it really truly comes down to the person and how good are they with that budget, or are they going to stay true to that payment plan that they put in place for themselves?
Yeah, no, that's a really great point too. But another thing, I think, benefit or, important component that we need to talk about here is fraud protections.
Very much.
Way different between a credit card and a debit card. Can you kind of dig into that a little bit for us?
I sure can. There's a lot that goes into any type of transaction. The cards actually have the tokens on the card, which is a protection. So what happens when you're actually putting a card into a machine, debit or credit, is that card is sending a one-time token to our processor to say it is approvable, this is the actual card for that person. And there's rules that come behind that, right? The biggest drawback I would think in regards to using a debit card versus a credit is, what if I have something that hit my account that was not me? I hate to say it, but it is prevalent in these days, right?
It does happen. So
we always talk about disputes or transactions that weren't authorized by you. Are you able to, if I'm always using my debit card and that happened for a major purchase that you didn't approve, are you able to handle that, right? A dispute process for a debit and credit card can take up to 30 days. So if you're using your debit card and a big purchase comes through, you could be waiting for almost 30 days to be able to have that investigation done and get credited finally.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say that's in the long run, but most of it happens within the week, the first couple weeks. But I'd much rather be making purchases on my credit card using other people's funds, right?
To protect it
to
a little
protect
bit.
myself,
Sure.
because my budget cannot handle that, right?
Yeah.
So that's maybe the drawback to a debit card versus a credit card in regards to risk.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up a really great kind of personal story for myself, because I'll be honest, I don't have a credit card. I've never had one. They scare me because I'm so risk averse.
Yes. Yep.
But to your point, because of that, I use my debit card a lot, and I've had fraud on my debit card before, where then you have to go in, get a new debit card, which thankfully First Alliance prints them same day instantly, so it's not like I'm waiting 2 weeks to get a new card, but that's still, I have to get a new card, I have to update your card information everywhere. Right. If that transaction that was fraudulent does go through, you're out that money, to your point, and if somebody were to get a hold of it and go on a shopping spree or book a big vacation with your card, they could drain your account really fast.
Yeah, and that's kind of the pros to that credit card piece of it, I think, is that aspect and fraud is so prevalent these days, and we have to be protective.
Yes, yeah. So what are maybe some of the tools that, because you mentioned, that we have the chips on the cards, that's one fraud prevention, matter that we have. What are maybe some other ways that, First Alliance Credit Union helps protect our members when it comes to, transactions? Yeah,
we have a monitoring system in place that always looks at rules that we put in place based on merchant behavior. That is a national program. It actually rates the actual transaction to a fraud scoring mechanism, so we know, is it high probability for fraud or is it low? And then it goes through an approval process that way, right? So we have those protections, but you can actually take a lot of action yourself. We do these alerts that can be sent to a text on your phone, which is a great way. As one of those transactions comes through that was alerted, it comes right to your phone, so you can say, yes, it was me, or no, it wasn't. And then that lets us know, hey, we need to flag the account and maybe stop any transactions on the card until we know it's true, right? So we have those things in place. And we have a lot of self-driven things in place too with our mobile app.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about what we're able to offer our members from that mobile app. I can go ahead and reset a PIN if I want to. I can block my card.
I love that feature.
That feature is awesome. I can actually say, if I don't want to use my card for the day, just turn my card off. I can actually do that, right?
I do that a lot, especially
Right?
when I forget, oh yeah, I did buy something
Exactly.
online a couple days ago and the transaction doesn't go through right away, and then you get that notification, like, $25 from this random place, because the names for the places that you're buying things from don't always match the places that you're thinking you're buying from. And so, yeah, it's great to be able to just kind of shut it off right away and then be able to verify, oh yeah, that's right, I did make a purchase, or, just verify even that it wasn't like a kid who got a hold of your...
Yep, like a PlayStation, we have things saved with our cards all over the place, so it's like, is that really what it is? So, I mean, there's so much available on the app. I really love, too, that if I wanted to, I could say that I always have to have my phone with me with my debit card to make a purchase.
Yes.
So then I'm right then and there.
Yes.
So that makes it almost like a dual authentication.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that kind of geolocation, like you have to be within a certain radius of the phone. Yeah, that's a great feature too.
Another great feature that we have is, say I was traveling, I can say I'm traveling to Florida, and I can go on my mobile app and say from this date to this date. So then the processor knows, hey, if a transaction comes through from Tennessee, well, maybe I'm on my way down to Florida. So then it's not going to stop your transactions.
Sure.
Especially like at gas stations. That's one of the most common ones that we have, is from gas stations. Another thing that happens quite often, and I totally love this feature, is if I'm stranded, say I did have a dispute and I'm traveling, what do I do, right?
Yeah.
I can't physically come into a branch to get a card, and I only use debit card. What can I do? Well, with our mobile app, we can actually say, can I please get a digital card? That card is automatically loaded into your mobile app in the cards feature, and I can add it to my Apple Wallet or your Google Wallet from that feature, so I have the card. I can also show the display on the card if I just needed it to give it to a motel.
Oh, sure.
I'm still able to access my funds, and that's what's the biggest thing for us in account services, is we want people to have access to their funds as much as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I forgot we had some of those features.
I know, it's like
I'm all excited about them now.
Right?
I feel like I'm learning about them for the first time.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really love all that we have for features on those cards.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we are coming up on time here. Is there any last minute, thoughts or tips or advice you want to share with our listeners about credit card versus debit card, and, what should they kind of be thinking about when making a decision of when to use each?
I think it really comes down to thinking about your budget, like having that in mind. Is this an everyday spending piece that, most likely should be on a debit card for, your day-to-day versus a credit card? Or am I really needing to establish credit? So maybe I need to flush everything to a credit card for 6 to 12 months to get myself established.
Sure.
Those are some thoughts. The biggest thing too is just making sure always that your information is always updated with your financial, even on a debit card or credit card. How are they going to reach you? How are they going to know it's you? So your phone numbers, your email, even your secondary cell phone number for a spouse. Make sure that that's all there, because a lot of times what we find that falters is when we can't communicate.
Sure.
If I don't have your cell phone number, we can't send you that alert, right? Yeah. So keep your stuff updated, always looking for the new features that we're coming out with. And really with the credit card, just make sure that you're being responsible. I see a lot of people that might not have a lot of knowledge yet and are just starting with credit cards. So trying to be responsible and just really thinking about how you're using it and having a goal.
Yeah, and a plan in place.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Nate. Like, you are a font of knowledge about this
exciting
stuff. So I'm
right?
glad that we were able to have you join us today. So thank you for joining us as well. This has been Good Money Moves. I'm Jenna Taubel, again here with Nate Finney. And if you want to keep learning about how to make better financial choices, visit our website at firstalliancecu.com and stay financially empowered. We'll see you next time.